So it was 3:33 when I decided to record this. That's when I knew I should continue on with this thought. So the title of this is, Are You Addicted to Being a Victim? And the reason why I ask is not to shame or blame you or to call you out, but to really ask you to consider that about yourself, because I have to say that it was a really huge, helpful turning point for me in my journey, and I suppose I started realizing that about myself about 6 years ago or so. The idea that I could be addicted to being a victim came to my awareness, and I started realizing all these little places where I was playing victim. And of course, if we have shame, then this can possibly bring up shame, and that's why a lot of us aren't willing to let ourselves hear this question or really answer it or contemplate it. But if you can do it, then it's really a beautiful way to unlock some of the limitations that we live in with our egoic coping structures, because it seems to be hidden a lot of places. Like if we're waiting for an apology from someone, we're acting like a victim to them, and even if they've done something that we want to know that they don't want to do again, and that they have learned that it hurts us and that they care about how we feel, like that's all understandable. But if we just hold out for a apology from someone, they might not be in the place where they can look at all those things or express all those things. So it would be silly to hold ourselves in the position of waiting for them to give us the okay to move on. It's like, well, we can move on, and then we can be discerning with that person in the future. Is this person someone who wants to continue hurting me in that same manner? Have they understood that they hurt me, and have they cared that they hurt me? Those are what we really want to know. We don't need someone to lower themselves. We just want to know whether or not it's worth continuing to have experiences with that person. You know, the trend of this is a different topic now. I was noticing the trend of people calling out Karens, what they call Karens, which I don't agree with that label. I think it's kind of rude towards people who are actually named Karen. I know some really lovely people named Karen. But anyway, we know what that means, and it basically, if someone's calling out someone as a Karen, they're just deeming themselves a victim to a Karen. And it's like, well, you can't really call out a Karen without being a Karen in that case, right? Because you're acting like you're a victim to someone else, which isn't that Karen behavior? Isn't that what makes a Karen? So it's like a little trap, right? It's like a place where we're seeing ourselves in the mirror of someone else. We're projecting onto someone that we're calling and labeling as Karen when we are actually being that ourselves. What else? I guess those are the really more subtle ways that I see it hidden, but just acting like we were entitled to have someone do something that they didn't do, or taking it personal when someone has a bad day or cuts us off in traffic, or takes the last one on the shelf when we wanted it. Just anywhere where we're acting like something is victimizing us. To make ourselves a victim actually lowers our vibration to match more situations where we will be victimized. Life responds to us on the vibration and the expectation and the intention that we have. So if we have an intention to feel victimized every time someone does something that may or may not have something to do with us, the universe responds in kind. Like, that's the life we live. Now, I do understand There are real things that happen to victimize people. I do understand that, and I'm not saying that it's inappropriate to feel like a victim at some point. I think that if you feel like a victim, even if it's just to a Karen, or if it's to an actual physical assault, whatever it is, allow ourselves to feel that way, be present with how we feel victimized, right? Because whatever we feel is valid for us to feel, but we don't have to stay there. Once we're present with that way of feeling, now we have a choice on how we respond. Do we want to stay in a victimized state? Do we want to hold that stance? Is there a reason for us to? Have we been trained into it? Have we thought, well, it's safer to be a victim? No one attacks the victim. No one expects of the victim. You know, are there other reasons why we would want to stay in that state of victim when we could move through that, integrate the feeling of being victimized, and then come out on the other side looking for or ready for a solution, or willing to heal, willing to go forward, having learned our strength, our resilience, and gained wisdom about how we want to proceed in the future, given that that could be something that would happen. You know, we live out fearful things when we hold fear viruses. And when we feel like a victim walking through life, we have more reasons to be victimized. Whether it's something like someone denting your car door with theirs in the parking lot, or someone actually pickpocketing you. It's going to correspond with your circumstances and what your soul wanted to learn and what vibration you're holding. And I'm not saying that you deserve anything bad to happen to you. I'm just saying that if we take responsibility for our own perspective, our own beliefs, and our own feelings, then we can move through these things without perpetuating the cycle, repeating over and over again, just to give us a chance to understand it. Like actually complete the understanding, which is that something happens, and it doesn't mean it's always going to happen that way. Something happens and we can recover. Something happens, it doesn't feel good in the moment. We're present with ourselves, we comfort ourselves, we're resilient because we know how to comfort ourselves and recover ourselves, and then we move through it. Now I realize there are sometimes people are victimized in ways that they can't recover from. If in any capacity that we can recover ourselves, don't we owe it to ourselves to do so? So I understand that it can feel like solace being in that state of victim, and especially if we've been wounded in childhood at a stage where we needed our caretakers to take care of us, and they weren't able to do it in the way that we needed or wanted, and we have a part of us longing for that care, and that when we feel like a victim, that's the only time we're going to get that care or that attention. It could work for attention as well. Being hurt was the only time you could possibly get attention. You know, if you are someone who has been neglected as a child, you may find yourself getting a lot of illness, and then when you go to the doctor, the nurse is the only one who ever shows you care in your whole life. That can feel really good. It can feel like the answer. It can feel like, oh, maybe if, I just keep coming to the doctor, and maybe you start manifesting more and more to go to the doctor for, because that's where you get what you need. We can give this to ourselves once we realize it's what we need. So it's important to notice patterns within ourselves, acknowledge them, validate why they're there, give ourselves the understanding and the presence of whatever feeling it is that's present or trying to be avoided. It's so important to do this for ourselves. We are not victims if we don't want to be. And this is called self-sovereignty and growth mindset. And if we add those things to our program, our operating system, I guarantee that we're going to be a lot more happy. I know I was, when I was able to recognize the issue and change how I operate, my life just started to change so much rapidly, and I'm so thankful for it. I'm so thankful for it. And I think for a while I even didn't realize that I held on to a program in myself which didn't allow for other people to feel victimized, because I hadn't let myself feel victimized to the degree that I needed to. But once I was able to allow myself to feel victimized, then I was able to allow it for other people too. So it's not that I'm annoyed or don't think it's right for someone to feel victimized, whereas I may have felt like that earlier on before I had given myself the presence on that. Now it's just actually an invitation to our resilience as human beings, to move through that state of being back into our freedom and our growth and our learning and our moving forward. So say we encounter someone who we would have formerly called a Karen. Whatever it is that they're making us feel, that we need to talk about and share about and get other people on board with validating for us. We could actually just validate ourselves. We could actually just acknowledge ourselves and how we feel. And sometimes we forget that step where we need to be present with how we feel if we've gotten a lot of validation from outside ourselves. If everyone gets on the bandwagon of noticing Karen and saying how wrong she is, then we might not take that extra step of being present with her own pain. And if we don't take the step of being present with our own pain, we're going to develop a coping mechanism for dealing with that situation. And if it's to look outside ourselves every time and try to collect a gang of people to be against that person that has hurt us or activated us in that trigger, then we're going to be constantly at war. We can eliminate the war altogether by taking responsibility for ourselves. So it's an invitation. Let me know if it's an invitation that you've taken for yourself.